Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5 is to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Tom.
Support.
Support by Amanda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is public comment portion of the meeting. Public comments will be accepted at this time. Each statement shall be limited to 5 minutes in duration. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board welcomes public comment but does not respond to citizens' concerns at its meetings. At the citizen's request and the board's direction, the superintendent or designee will respond in a timely manner. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public community meeting. We have one name on the list thus far. Would anyone else like to put their name on the list to speak? Hearing none. Mr. Johnson, if you'd like to go first. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know who I am Chief Rick Johnson with the Montague Police Department. Last board meeting, some of you had posed questions about the school resource officer position that Mr. Johnson had applied for through a federal grant. I provided the board with some literature, some information about that position and what the Montague Police Department is capable of offering. Currently, the Montague Police Department provides law enforcement related services to the Montague area public schools at no cost. The law enforcement services that we are capable to provide are reactive with minimal proactive services. In addition to the school-related activities, we're responsible for patrolling and responsible for taking calls at the school. My officers and myself are most often called to school by the administration. It's basically what I'm trying to say is on the downside of having a school resource officer would be a proactive approach. The Montague Police Department school resource officer would have 4 main responsibilities: law enforcer, informal counselor, educator, and emergency manager. I've kind of laid it out in the information I provided you, and I would hope that you would take that into consideration when, I guess, voting on a school resource officer. Thank you.
Item 7, reports.
All right, first on our list is our principal meaningful minutes. Who would like to go first? Ms. Dyer.
Me.
We have a busy month at the MAC. First of all, we had teachers from Fremont join us last week. They were in our building and also at the early building to observe our Bridges Math program in action. The ISD recommended that Fremont come view us if they would like to see that program done with fidelity. So that was kind of an honor from the ISD, and I think you would have all been very proud of our elementary teachers. The kids traveled to the early building on the bus for Santa's secret shopping that the PTO provided, and I will say they were as excited about the bus ride as the shopping, because for many of those kids, that was their first experience. They had a wonderful time shopping for family and friends. We learned a long lesson. Next year, we'll probably shorten the number of people you can buy for, because they had quite a long list of shopping to get done. It was a time-consuming effort. This week, we also did interviews for a school support specialist. As you may or may not know, our current school support specialist at the MAC resigned, and he is anxious to spend some time with his wife at home. So we have found a candidate, and we did extend an offer to that person tonight, so we're waiting for our response. We hope to get her started quickly. And then finally, both our Young 5 and K grade levels will be having parent days coming up. Kindergarten's is Friday, Young 5's is on Monday. Parents are invited in to learn a math game and a language arts game, both of which have some foundational skills that will be really beneficial. We hope that parents pick up some of the good questioning techniques that are modeled for them that day, and then when they leave, they can take both the language arts and math games home to play again and again, we hope. That's it at the MAC.
Mr. Henderson is under the weather today, so I'm here on his behalf. Last time we were here, the Veterans Day backdrop was all set up. Obviously, that's gone and been replaced. But they did a great job, third grade, with that. Awarded some military members with quotes of valor. Jackie Wood was also selected again by the VFW as the Teacher of the Year in honor of all of the efforts she puts into that program. Our food drive, Mr. Henderson talked about this last month. The goal was 1,000 items. They quickly reached that, and the final tally was 2,480 items collected. The winning class was awarded donuts and chocolate milk, and in the spirit of giving, Mr. Rolowitz's 5th grade class was the winner of that. They chose to give that to a 1st grade class instead of keeping it for themselves. So that was really an awesome gesture on their behalf as well. 4th grade went to the Ford Museum in Grand Rapids for a field trip. And of course, many of our field trips are financially supported by our PTO, and they just held the Santa's Secret Shop last week. It's quite a thing to see when they have that, one of the biggest fundraisers for the year. That combined with popcorn days, and they are selling apparel. Check out their Facebook page. They do a lot for our kids and give them the opportunity to go on field trips at no cost to the students. So that's a really great thing that they're doing for us. The 5th grade holiday program is tomorrow night on this stage, 7 o'clock. And then December 20th will be the last day before break. We'll have our class parties, a sing-along, and I heard Santa's coming to town that day as well.
We are pretty busy at NBC. Our winter sports are moving right along. Basketball ends this week, and competitive cheer will finish right after Christmas break. We want to thank the FFA. They brought in some treats to our staff on Wednesday for early release with hot chocolate, and they had little notes written to all of our teachers as well. So every teacher got a bag with some notes from the students on some things they're thankful for at NBC, which was really great and appreciated by all the teachers. We are in the midst of creating a video/audio production room at NBC. We've got a little closet that we're going to turn into that space. So we can have, this space will be utilized by Mr. Long. He has a video production class, and they're going to expand into like radio commercials and podcasting. So this is a spot where they can go and record and have the microphone set up. We have programs that will do all the editing for them. And I've been utilizing some of that stuff as well, as we've been doing podcasts for part of the learning for our teachers during their early releases. So they get little snippets of new learning that they get in a podcast while they kind of get up and walk around, and we come back and process. So it's been a lot of fun. So this will be utilized across the building. We are also working to create a Fab Lab at NBC. So this is going to turn into a class next year, and it's on the agenda coming up for the approval of a new class at NBC. So the reason for the approval now is we've got donations for equipment coming in, and I'd like to purchase some of the equipment now so we can start to use it a little bit, have be familiar with the equipment before we start a new class and have new equipment. But in this class, and if you have more questions when you get to the board and you'd like more information, I'll be happy to answer more then. But we're really looking at having the kids look at engineering practices and design practices using a free CAD program, either Onshape or Tinkercad. They create projects that would get printed in a 3D printer. We're looking at kind of like a laser etcher that will cut balsa and etch things in, so they can put things together from the designs that they have that they put together in CAD. So looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. And if you haven't seen the new banner at NBC, it's in the main hallway. There used to be the map there that was on the wall, that huge map And after 17 years, it was in pretty bad shape. So we had to take that down. We had the wall repainted, and we just put in a large banner of a poster that a student drew. So it's 9 by 12. But the cool thing about the frame is it opens up, and then you can take the banner out, and you can put a new banner in and close it up, and it looks like it's all in a picture frame. So we'll be changing those throughout with other student work. It's a great space to display some cool stuff done by our kids. Thanks.
Good evening. A few highlights from Montague High School in the last month or so. Just before Thanksgiving on this stage, I invited our exchange students to put together a presentation kind of teaching us about their countries. It turned out so awesome. We had to spread it over 2 days. They did such a great job kind of creating all kinds of slides and information or whatever, but good time for the students, and we got to learn a lot about Mongolia and Chile and France and Italy and all kinds of good stuff. Also, just before Thanksgiving, we had Montague alums Willow Smith and Clay Jancic. They were back in the town and area for things, so we had them speak to the students. One was part of Mr. Eslick's speaker series. Another one, Clay came in and spoke to some classes and also to some lunch hours about the Naval Academy and different naval careers that are available. Winter sports season is up and running. Quiz Bowl team is getting organized with competitions for them starting in January. That'll be our first time jumping into the Quiz Bowl arena. Mrs. Bender, for the last 3 weeks or so, has had a great project going on where she kicked off the project, first bringing in 4 kind of guest speakers from various industries to talk about waste management and kind of reducing waste in those industries. That was the kickoff, and then the students worked on the project for 2 or 3 weeks, and then today those students had to present to various little subgroups where she had a variety of community members in as kind of panelists to kind of judge these kids' projects at the conclusion. Very, very cool project for her. Last week we had the Save a Life Tour was here with the distracted and impaired driving simulators set up out in the auditorium lobby out there. That was good for our students to see the impacts of those type of driving things. Saturday night we had a great time at the Christmas dance. Lots of students were dressed up fancy, had a good time showing off their moves. I may have even got out there for a couple moves myself. Looking ahead to next week, we have our second round of NWA testing, the FFA state site visits for the state star competitions. There'll be some of those going on this coming week. And then next Sunday, band and choir will have their Christmas concerts here on stage at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. to kind of kick off the holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you for all the principal meaningful minutes. Great job. Next, we have Mrs. Stacy Brown with our financial update.
Okay, tonight we are asking the board to approve the first information of what's in that budget amendment. I did email the presentation to you if you wanted to follow along. So I'll give you a recap of where we're at with our budget. We ended last year with a fund balance of $2.3 million, which is about 13% fund balance, very healthy fund balance. And that was about $570,000 better than we had anticipated, which was great for the district. Last June, a lot of things were unknown. We didn't know our revenues, didn't know all of our expenditures, and at that time, the board was asked to pass a budget that we'd end June 2023 with a fund balance of about $1 million, or 5.7% fund balance. Since then, we now know our revenues, we know how many students are sitting in seats, what will be funded, we better know our staffing levels, our expenditures. So this budget amendment has our fund balance at $1.6 million, which is about an 8.5% fund balance. And as we dig into this, please know this is a conservative budget. We are hopeful that not all of these anticipated expenditures will take place, and our fund balance will end a little higher than we do anticipate. We look at our revenue, and revenue is up about $740,000 over what we had anticipated. We know that we are getting funded for about 1,353 students at $9,150 per student. That's 5 students up from our anticipated budget. It is 19 students down from last year. Other things that have contributed to our revenue increase are our state sources, which are local sources. We've got increased tax revenue. Our taxable value is higher than anticipated. We're finally able to get some interest. The banking environment is now that we can get interest, which is nice over the last few years. And we also received a Lighthouse Learning Grant in the amount of $57,000 from Whitehall District Schools. State sources are also up about 300,000, and that has to do mainly with how we're funded for special education this year. The state changed the way that they calculate that, and that is a $300,000 revenue addition for the district. Federal sources increased ever so slightly, just about 60,000. That has to do with our allocation, better knowing our Title I, Title II allocations. We also received an additional federal grant, which is the American Rescue Plan Special Education flow through, and that will come through the ISD. Other financing sources increased slightly. Those are indirect costs that we're able to capture from the food service fund. So while revenues have increased by 740,000, our expenditures increased by 760,000. Largely in each category, that can be attributed to our increased wage and salaries that were negotiated through both of our bargaining groups. Not wage and salaries, wage and benefits. And then also we have increased maintenance and repair costs. We'll kind of dig into what that looks like in every category. In instruction, we're up about $45,000. And instruction is our largest category, so that's pretty darn good. That just has to do with our staffing, taking our retirements into account and our new hires, and overall we're $45,000 up in that category. Pupil support, we're up by about $27,000. That has to do with the hiring of a new psychologist. For the past 3 years, we've been contracting with retired psychologists, and this year we have one of our own on staff. We've got our instructional staff support, that's up by about $30,000. We do have an anticipated staff retirement there, and also our Title II. General administration is up by about $15,000. That can be attributed to our election expenses. We had increased election expenses due to the August bond election and the November school board election that we have to pay Muskegon and Oceana County for. School administration is up about $27,000. That's just a change in allocation. Historically, Allison has been funded by many different funding streams, Title I, Title II, General Fund, and this year it just depends on where her separation of duties is, what she's spending most time on, and so most of her salary has been allocated to school administration this year. Business services is up by about $10,000. That can be attributed to our increased interest on our state aid note. Each year we borrow money in September to get us through the cash flow of the fall. And this year our interest rate was 2.98%, and years past it was just under 1%. Operations and maintenance is where we see our largest increase. That's an increase of about $400,000. And that's attributed to a few different factors. First of all, we do have our wage and benefit increases. We also have an increase in utilities. I've received communications from our utility providers who said to plan on a 30% increase, so I do have that in the budget. And then the third factor is that we just have maintenance and repair needs within the district. And at this time, we're allocating the sinking fund to the needs at RRO Elementary. Therefore, we're taking all of the other maintenance needs out of the general fund. That includes air conditioning repair here in the auditorium. We have an intake fan at the middle school. We've got track repairs that need to take place. We have a furnace go out in the concession stand, and that needs to be repaired. And then also we have emergency roof repairs that need to be conducted before the snow flies, and those are totaling $70,000. So all of that is coming out of the general fund as we're saving our sinking fund for some of those projects at RRO. Transportation is up by about $100,000. Couple factors there. We have an anticipated staff retirement. We also have skyrocketing diesel prices, and we're finally up to pre-COVID transportation runs again. Over the past few years, we have had a lot of savings in the transportation department because we have not had all our special ed programs every single day. CTC was on an altered schedule. Field trips and athletic events weren't taking place at pre-COVID levels, and now they are, and so now we're realizing those expenses are rising a little bit. Other central support, that is up by about $77,000. We have an anticipated staff retirement there, and then we allocated some money for software licenses from the Tech and Safety Fund. Athletics stayed very close to what was budgeted, and community services went up a little bit, and that's just our Title II allocation right now. I have that sitting there for parent engagement. Once Allison and I work through that final amendment, that may be allocated to different categories. Other financing uses stayed steady. Those are principal and interest payments on a few buses and vehicles that we have, and those will be paid off by this time next year. So once we take all of that into account, our revenues and our expenditures, that has us ending this year with an anticipated $1.6 million, which is an 8.5% fund balance. And again, we hope that is conservative and hope that our fund balance is slightly higher than that at the end of the year. Now that is the general fund. We also have our school service funds. Food service, once again, we had a finding, there's too much money in food service, and we have been diligently trying to spend down food service over the past few years. We have remodeled kitchens, we remodeled cafeterias, we purchased vehicles, but we've been funded at historically high levels from the state and federal sources, and now that funding is back down to normal levels. So hopefully this year we can get within an allowable threshold. This year we are offering free breakfast and lunch to all students, regardless of their free reduced lunch status. And we're also continuing to buy equipment and services that add value to our food service program. If all the planets align and our revenues and expenditures come in as anticipated, we should have a fund balance of about $430,000, which will get us into that allowable threshold to no longer have that finding. Safety and Tech Fund, we're in year 9 of our Safety and Tech Fund, and we're so appreciative of that. Our revenues aren't known quite yet. We are expecting about $300,000. Once we take our revenues, our Safety and Tech Fund balance, and the expenditures into account, we should end the year with about a $2,000 fund balance. And our expenditures this year include the finishing of the upgrade to our video surveillance throughout the district. We also ordered new desktops throughout the district, and we continue to fund our technology assistance out of this fund as well. Then we move on to the Scholarship Trust Fund. We do have a few scholarships that the district manages along with the trustees of those scholarships. Each year we anticipate that the trustees will donate some money. We'll also pay out a few scholarships to the students. That should leave us with a fund balance of about $30,000. And if you remember, we liquidated 2 of the Townsend scholarships last year because they had requested that that money be used towards the band uniform purchase. We do still have the Griffin, the O'Connell, the Trevino, and the Flynn scholarships. And we have our student activity funds, which are housed at the building, and the students fundraise for certain items and certain events. We anticipate money in is money out, leaving us with a fund balance of about $100,000. And while we don't have to make a budget for the sinking fund, I'd just like to update the board on the sinking fund. We ended last year with a fund balance of about $158,000. We're expecting tax revenues of about $315,000 this year, which should give us enough money to start with the window replacement job at RO Elementary. We are working on an RFP right now. We hope to get that out soon, and then hopefully the board can approve contractors in February or March, and then allow for the window replacement starting this summer. And then if we are hopeful, once that job is completed, that we can then do the HVAC upgrade the summer of 2024. And again, that's dependent on our tax revenue and the cost of that project. So as we look forward, we're not only looking forward to this school year, but next school year. I know it's hard to believe that in December, but yes, we are. And as usual, this is a conservative budget. We are hopeful that not all of these expenditures will take place. But as we look forward, we need to keep in mind the federal funding cliff. Federal funds have been coming in unprecedented amounts these past few years, and this year we are down $700,000. Next year we're down another $700,000. So in 2 years, that's a reduction of $1.4 million. We also need to keep in mind our student enrollment. We need to keep in mind that student enrollment is decreasing, and we do have some smaller class sizes at the elementary level versus the larger sizes that are graduating. We need to take a look at our staffing levels. We need to analyze and adjust our staffing levels and make sure those are sustainable moving forward within our budget. Transportation is something we need to consider. This budget does not have a bus purchase in it. We did purchase 2 buses last year, so I'm anticipating that we may purchase one next year, so we need to keep that in mind. And then our building repair and maintenance costs need to be considered as well. Since we are earmarking the sinking fund for RO Elementary, we need to be cognizant that any other needs will be coming out of the general fund. And that is a recap of the finances and what we are asking the board to approve tonight. Do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Stacy. Next, we have superintendent comments. Just a couple support staff hires here. Leanne Gomez, E.L. Para. She is coming to us from Telamon Head Start. She is a Montana graduate, a Spanish speaker. We'll work with our EL staff to provide services for students specifically at the elementary level. We also have Wendy Smith joining us for food service. She's a former cook from Whitehall and also has worked for Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp with Mr. Gorman as well. And then we have Mark Atchison, who will be filling a freshman add-on position. Thank you to him for stepping up in that position. He's a former Montague graduate as well, and a manufacturing engineer, and he will be filling that role for this year. In other updates, we do have, you heard from Mr. Johnson. I did also want to let the board know that the SRO application was submitted from the last board meeting, so we have submitted that application. I will update you when we hear back to see if that application has went through. At this point, we have not, but the application, once we hear that it has gone through and what kind of dollars that creates, whether we can have additional conversation. The technology and security millage work that we had done at the last board meeting as well, that was approved by all schools within Muskegon County as well. So that will be moving forward through the MASD, and their millage will go forth in the May election. So take note of that. Also be on the lookout. They will be releasing school accountability scores and school districts report cards. Although the district has had growth on their scores this year, there's still plenty of work to do, and I will bring forth all that data for the January board meeting. And then, as previously mentioned, during the November board election, there will be some changes to the board, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Jim Wildfang. Thank you very much for coming to us, the board and the district, in a time of need when we needed somebody to fill in. And although your time was short here, you were very helpful to this board and to this district in many ways. So thank you for that. And then thank you to Dr. Amanda Unger for your years of service, 6 years of service here. And you did many great things here for the school district, so I'd like to thank you as well for that as well. So thank you to the both of you. And with that, we have the end of our superintendent comments, so on to new business.
All right. Item A is a motion to approve out-of-state travel for 8th grade class field trip to Chicago in May.
So moved. Support.
Motion made by Brent, support by Tom. Discussion?
So this is a field trip that has not taken place over the past couple of years just due to COVID, but was an annual trip that took place for all 8th graders on an annual basis. You do see the details there. You go to the Science Museum of Science and Industry, Millennial Park, Magnificent Mile, John Hancock Tower, and it's a great trip that takes place for the 8th grade students.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B is a motion to approve Dan Gorman to travel out of state for the SNA Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C., March 5th through 7th.
So moved.
Motion made by Tom,
Support.
support by Brent. Discussion?
So Mr. Gorman obviously does a great job with our food service, but through the recent grant that he received, he has really worked his way into the advocating for school programs as a whole. Through that process, he is looking to work at the Legislative Action Conference, which is a national conference located in Washington, D.C. There will be funds from the grant that he had received in order to pay for that, along with some food service dollars that we could use to spend in that process as well.
With that, could there be some news media brought back so that we can publicize that?
We definitely can make
Other
sure
than
that takes place, yeah.
District's cap. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item C is motion to approve the addition of computing systems class to the middle school curriculum.
So moved.
Motion made by Tom,
Support.
support by Cindy. Discussion?
So you heard Mr. Pro mention it briefly in his principal meaningful minute, but this computer systems courses offer broad exploration of the use of computers in a variety of fields. These courses have considerable range of content, but typically include the introduction of robotics and control systems, computer-assisted design, computer-aided manufacturing systems, and other computer technologies. We do have some donors that are looking to get involved in buying equipment for the district, and in order for that to take place, we want to make sure that there is a course to show them that this is something that we're actively looking to take place in the future.
Is there an interest with the students?
Yes, there is.
I just hate to buy equipment and not have anybody want to use it.
Yes. No, there definitely is.
Assuming too that there'll be like connection to jobs too, so students will learn like what they can use those skills for.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D is a motion to approve the quote from Master Tech Roof Management for $45,723 for emergency roof repairs at RRO.
So moved.
Motion made by Tom, second by Jen.
So in your packet, you see the three bids, one from Master Tech. Other quotes included Ace Roofing and Arrow Roofing. As you heard Stacy mention in the financial update, obviously this is a large expenditure, but there are leaks on the roof at RRO that need to be taken care of prior to the snow fall, as with the snow, it will continue to leak all winter long. So it would be specifically to one area of the, not the oldest part of the early school, but the second oldest part, where there will be needs, and that is a large expenditure of being at $45,000. There are other roof repairs throughout the district, but not that would need those bidding process.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item E is a motion to approve the amendment for the 22-23 budget as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Tom. Support by Amanda. Discussion.
So as I previously mentioned on the original budget that we approved, that we would not want to go that far as a fund balance, and that we would allow that to happen. You can see the growth already from 5.3% to the 8.5%. We do anticipate that to grow as well throughout the remainder of the year. We want to make sure that we stay conservative in our budgeting, though, to know that at least we're at this point and at an 8.5%. I do anticipate, though, that to increase as well, and look forward to a great finish to the end of the year.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item F is to approve the MESPA contract through June 30th, 2025 as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Tom. Support by Jen. Discussion.
So as a whole, you see the contract as a whole, and there are many things that took place. This is our third part of approval. First part was the wage increase that has already taken place. We wanted to make sure that that got in place for the start of the year. There was also the insurance components that we wanted to make sure include for the start of the year as well. So the wage increase, the salary schedule that was taking place. Once again, this is a 3-year contract. It was that 16.7 increase of the original, and then a 1% moving forward off of that. There's a lot of language moves into the contract. We wanted to make sure that it was easy to read for the employee, along for us as well with HR and Krista Hams. There becomes a lot of questions that Krista has to answer, and there should be a lot easier readability for the employee in that process. So it has a different look to it that was agreed upon the union and ourselves. I'm going to just kind of list through a couple things that have financial implications that were added. So there was the insurance component and then the actual salary schedule. There was also year-round and extended year employees, which are secretaries and custodians, which were hired after June 30th of 2016, that work 7 or more hours a day, will receive a Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and the day after Thanksgiving now included in their holiday pay. So there's 3 additional days that were previously taken away on past contracts, but those will be added in that as well. There will also be year-round and extended year employees, which once again are secretaries and custodians, working 7 more hours a day. Their vacation work will be for the 2022 and 23 school year, be 2 weeks from per the year beginning at hire, and then 3 weeks for the year 5 years and after and more. And then for the 23-24 school year, it'll be 2 years for new hires, 3 years at 5 to 10, and then after 10 it'll be 4 weeks of vacation. So it is working its way back towards some of the vacations that were put in previously for those staff members. And this isn't all staff members like it was previously, just those year-round or extended employees, being the custodians and the secretaries, not all. It also then moves into accumulated sick time that an employee has carried over from a previous year, may be used for non-student days during an employee's work calendar. So what we're looking to do in this is that the vacation days must be used first. Let's say, for instance, a staff member only has 1 week or 2 weeks of vacation. They use it on their first non-student days in an effort to get paid during that time. We will also allow them to use accumulated sick time, not their current year's sick time, but accumulated. So it would make an effort for us as a district to them to be present and not taking days off, but they could then utilize to get paid on those non-student days. Vacation day approvals, just some language change on making sure that there must be at least 2 weeks in advance notice. We talked about the vision and dental care at the previous one. Ellery aides assigning a student health component will receive an additional $1 per hour. These are our Ellery aides that service students, such as changing or feeding tubes and those kind of things, will receive this additional compensation. And those are the major emphasis, but then the language not changes, but repositioning in a contract, as you can see in that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Yes. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G is Neola policies, first reading. 37, number 1.
So this does not need any approval. This is just the first reading. I will provide some discussion. We met as a policy committee. There was some changes that are not currently on the documents that you received in your board packet. I did reach out with Darlene, our NOLA rep, and the new policy, which is the 6108, which is the authorization to use electronic fund transfers and automated clearinghouse arrangements. There was question around electronic fund transfers, which is EFTs. We are the first to catch their typo, so they will be changing that. She said we could also just remove that if we so desired, but they will be changing that, so that will take place. It will be a change where instead of saying ETFs, it will be EFTs. So kudos to the group on that. But I kept them the same because I want to make sure we're pointing out what those changes will be on this one. The second policy, looking at 64.6, I guess let me explain a little bit about 6108. These are just laws that per the, as far as electronic fund transfers that need to take place. It's just basically saying that we need to have internal controls. We are already compliant with this, within this through our auditors, but this is a new policy that they're saying districts must have. So no changes for the district in the efforts that we do, our current process, but it is a new policy they want us to add. The second policy is 6460, vendor relations. In these vendor relations, the district may provide a vendor with exclusive access to markets its products to parents, guardians, and their students at events that the district considers to be limited public forums or non-public forums. Students and their parents, guardians are not required to purchase goods, so it allows us to have preferred vendors. For instance, our Gossip reps, this now makes us legal in the efforts that we do around those vendors at our school events. The next one is 6700, Fair Labor Standards Act, and the changes that took place there were just changes to the, there's, instead of his or her, using the word there, and then also, as required by federal law, the district takes necessary steps to support staff members who decide to breastfeed their infants by providing additional unpaid reasonable break time as necessary for qualified employees to express the use of that. And this is just as far as this is a law as well, federal law that needs to take place that we need to change within our policies as well. 7440.03, we were already in compliance with this as well. It was just a change within the federal law and coding, the 86 FR 4314. We had taken that, all districts had not taken that previously, so it's not that big of a change, just a federal law change of numbers. And then 9150, school visitors. We did look to change in the second paragraph where it says the superintendent or the principal, which is now the superintendent or designee, is what we will be looking to switch to based upon recommendation from the policy committee. Also in that same paragraph, the second paragraph there, it says the principal is authorized, and it would be the superintendent or designee is authorized.